I feel that companies are not ready to implement within that company to allow their users to use AI unless they have actually classified and segmented their data. There are companies out there that do not have policies where, oh, they're using ChatGPT. But ChatGPT is open. You don't want your intellectual property being put out there on ChatGPT.
Hi, in this episode, I'm going to be talking with Stela Fink. Stela is an expert in incident response, and we're going to talk specifically about some work she did for a company that got really hit hard with some ransomware and all the things that she had to do to help recover from that incident as well as protect them going forward. Stela.
Hi, Glenn. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. Happy
Great.
Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for asking me to come on your Data and Confused.
So tell our audience what you do.
So I am a freelancer. I am currently acting in the role of a incident response manager on cyber security. I've been working with a client now for almost 2 years. They got ransomware, and we came in, and they were literally burnt to the ground, came in, got them back up. And then I've been helping them with some of their technical debt. So, yeah.
So I see you have two red phones there behind you. Is that what rings when the ransomware hits?
Those are going to be a special showcase if anybody's going down to Black Hat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You going to Black Hat this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
I help out with the Conference Associate Program. So I'm one of the deputy program assistants there to bring in all the conference associates. And these are folks that are either beginning in their cyber career or have years of experience. They come in, help do directions, they do speaker liaisons, they do all sorts of things in the back end to help the attendees find their way.
I remember going to Black Hat back in the day, back when Mr. Dark Tangent was running the show, back when it was his baby still. 20 plus years ago, I guess. But I know he sold a while ago and stuff. But how long have you been involved in Black Hat?
Since 2018. So that was my first year as a conference associate. And then, of course, COVID happened in 2020. And so we didn't go back until I guess it was 2023, maybe 2022. Yeah. So I've been helping to run. I'm the dispatcher, making sure that people are where they need to be, making sure their schedules are. When I first started, we were doing like 12, 14-hour days, and it was long days,
What?
Right? Yeah. I mean, we got to get there
You got
before
to
the
support
attendees,
everyone.
right? Yeah, you get there
Yeah.
before the attendees, make sure
Sure.
everything's set up,
Yeah.
right? And all of that. And then you stay after, and then
Right.
there's days after the 4-day training that you've got that night to change to go into the briefings. So yeah, there's a lot of setup, tear down, and everything.
It's good incident response training. Maybe it's a little I instead of the big I.
Big guy,
with
yes.
Incident response, right? But you're dealing with lots of little incidents like, where's my badge? And this thing that was supposed to be in the booth isn't, and what's the Wi-Fi password? Yeah.
Right. And even though we've got like stickers everywhere or
Exactly.
signs
Yeah.
everywhere, right?
Right.
Use the Wi-Fi. This is our Wi-Fi password. Yeah.
Yeah. Read
Yeah.
the fine manual, people. Yep.
So, but yeah, you're right. It is a little mini incidents that we take care of. But I work closely with the SOC there. So if there's any issues in the training rooms and the briefing rooms, they help take care of it. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's another thing that would be a fun thing to just see is all these attendees come and just with their own laptops that may or may not have some stuff happening on it, some malware or something like that, right? I've heard stories from other security conferences, right, where it's like they have to go up to somebody afterward. And one time it was a speaker and had to have the conversation with him. It's just like, I'm sorry, but according to our detectors here. You got some malware on your laptop. If you don't mind, we, you know, take a look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've traveled and attended the one in London, and this year I went to Asia with my husband. He's the principal architect of Black Hat. He's been that for as long as I've known him, and even beyond, probably almost 20 something
So he's
years.
got some war stories for sure.
He
Yeah.
does.
So what got you interested in doing cybersecurity incident response?
Well, let's see. I started in information technology back in the 80s, right? So back then we were doing information security before it was security, right? Before anybody knew. We had VLANs, we had segmentation of data and shares where only the right people had access. So but nobody really called it security, right? We were just you could only access this data, you could only access that data. When I first started working right after high school, all the ransomware, I love yous, and all of those started happening. So those were interesting, right? So I just continued to learn, became a network administrator when I was in Los Angeles for about 13 years. Went into a IT project management, helped roll out a bunch of new switches and routers for Cisco for a small law firm, and then just slowly went into cybersecurity even more, starting around probably 2018, learning how to read. It, you have to have that analytical mind, right? If you've got to think about, oh, what if you're a security analyst or even a front end level one, level two help desk person, if you start asking questions, you've got to have that analytical mind. And I was always curious, always ask questions. What about this? What about that? And so that just kind of eased me into cybersecurity. And when I met my husband, he taught me a lot more about cybersecurity, introduced me to the folks at Black Hat. And then I just started learning on my own the MITRE ATT&CK, went and learned earned my ISC2 cyber certificate, which is your intro into cybersecurity. So I've just been, and then 2 years ago, there was an incident at a client that he had, and he couldn't hire anybody, so he asked me if I wanted to come help him, and that's how I became an incident responder.
So you've been helping this client through that incident of theirs. So that sounds like that was a very painful thing for them.
It
You said they
was.
got burnt to the
They
ground.
did. They
So
did
was
get burnt
it?
to the ground.
Yeah. So did they have backups? Like, what did it look like coming in?
So that's one of the things that we first asked, right? And everybody from the board on down to the C-level and their leadership team thought that they were getting backups and they thought they were good. And it turns out that they really weren't. So one of the things that I've talked to, and I've tried to tell people is you got to check your backups, right? If you're going to, in order to prepare for an incident, you need to have an incident response plan, and part of that incident response plan is what is your business continuity plan, right? So what are you going to do if something happens? How do you get yourself back up? And you can't just say, oh, yeah, the backup goes up to the cloud and it's there. Have you tested it? Have you looked at it? Have you confirmed? Like all of that, right? And then there are other things, technical things that they weren't doing correctly. They were surviving, is what I think they were. So, information technology is so huge, and for companies, it is not one of their top priorities when it comes to budget, right? So when it comes to budget, they want to spend money on all other sorts of things versus the back end. And you've got to think about, well, if I've got an on-prem data center, I don't want those servers to be 10 years old. I don't want those switches to not ever get replaced, right? So you've got to have a budget to help replace and keep updating those so that you've got the newest and latest. If you read every day, there is something where, oh, there's a new exploitation on a switch or a server or something that's been old, that's been sitting out there for a decade. And if you still have those running in production, you're going to get owned.
I mean, not that it matters, but I'm just curious in this case if you were able to determine the vector through which the bad guys got in. So, if you end up getting burnt to the ground, maybe it was inevitable, especially if you're not keeping things up to date. It's not a priority, whether they got in through a phishing link or, through some vulnerability that wasn't patched. Maybe it doesn't matter at the end of the day, but just out of curiosity, did that matter? Were you able to pinpoint that? And then what did you do with that information?
Yeah, one of the saving grace is that the person that was there as their IT director cut them off from the internet. So that was their saving grace, where it didn't get them. I mean, it got them, but it didn't
It could
populate.
have been worse. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But it was a phishing, it was ransomware, and we found patient zero, and we worked our way through it. So I think what could have helped them is the way that their network was set up was not set up very to the standards, to NIST standards, right? So they were kind of wide open that way. And then there was also cybersecurity awareness and training that wasn't happening, right? So common sense stuff, right? Um, we've all seen over the past probably decade or so, you get emails. Oh, the CEO wants you to click on this link to go buy all these credit cards or all these gift cards, right?
Right. And it's always really important. It's
Right.
like this urgent, this needs to happen right
Right.
now because I'm here at the Black Hat conference. I'm going to go up on stage in a minute and I really need to have 50 gift cards to give away to people. It seems plausible. It's just like, this is weird, but okay, I guess so.
Yeah, let me click on this link and get it done, right? Yeah. Yeah, so it was someone that clicked on a link and they got had, right? And so we found that. We helped to resolve that, but we suspect that this particular threat actor was there for quite some time. A lot of what they'll do, and if you're familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK framework, they'll go in and they'll send you something. And if you click on the link, they may get a look to see what kind of permissions you have. If you've got, that's another big thing, right? So there's so many things that you've got to look at. Is you can't have admin permissions. You can't have super admin permissions. You've got to limit those permissions for the user, right? Use PIM, which helps to stop threat actors. But at the time, they didn't have any of this. So the threat actor got in, was able to move laterally, go look at their network, and go do things before they were had. So they had downloaded the data or started to exfiltrate when they got cut off.
So you mentioned MITRE. So can you tell us who MITRE is and what is the MITRE attack framework and how that came into play with all of this?
I've only been using MITRE for a little bit, since I started doing this. It's a utility where you can go in and it will tell you all the tactics and techniques of what a attacker would do. So there is for mobile, there is for network, IoTs, and it was funded by CISA. I think it still is, at least for the next year. And it's where all of the CVEs, right? So it's kind of a catalog of the CVEs, and you can go in and look. And it'll help you too as well if you go in and look, say, you have a vulnerability with mobile devices. It'll tell you what to do and what to fix. It'll tell you what CVEs are attached to a particular vulnerability and what tactics and techniques a threat actor could use to get in and get you, and do a payload or start, you know, get into your network.
Right, right. So it tells you here's the things that they typically do. Once they get in, then they might do this, then they might do
Hmm.
that. You can sort of follow the breadcrumbs. Is
Yes.
that, would that be fair to
Yes.
say?
Yep. Yep.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Now that you've got them back up and running again, is there some tools? Is there, you mentioned the NIST framework, so I imagine there's some just like foundational things that you've changed for their overall just deployment of technology. But is there is there some new tooling? Was it about re-architecting thing, or is there some new tooling that you brought in as well that you really liked?
So I was in charge of helping to collect all the forensic evidence, and try to get some of their data back. So I worked with a group of incident responders from the NetWitness. So they came in, they helped to analyze the forensics that I was collecting, to kind of figure out what actually happened. One of the things that we implemented was PIM.
So what is
That
PIM?
PIM is privilege access management.
Okay.
So it's used in a lot of the network, mainly in M365, but you can use it pretty much anywhere. But it allows you for just-in-time access, right? So if you are part of a um, big organization and you have your laptop and you need to install applications, most of the time, a personal laptop, you're able to do it, right? Because you are your own admin. For organizations, you shouldn't be your own admin in your company laptop. So PIM level access will allow you to um, elevate your permissions so that then you can become either an application admin or a domain local joined admin for that laptop to be able to install an application.
Gotcha. That makes
For
sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
for back end help desk and IT folks, they can become administrators of Intune, Teams, SharePoint, AD, all of that. And then you can have more logs and also determine how long of elevated rights do you want them to have. Right, so nobody should have global admin rights unless they absolutely need it, but they have to check that out and check it out for X number of time, right? And give the business justification. So one of the biggest things is that we did is that we restrict them from having all of this open access to only having certain access, and if they needed to elevate to the next to an admin, they would have to justify it. We implemented that. We've also implemented Intune for them, so that they can help with their inventory.
So that makes sense. So if I'm an admin on my local system, it may be convenient for me because then I can just install all the things I want. But then the downside is if a bad guy sends me a link and I click on it, then I may accidentally install something that I shouldn't have. But then by then it's too late. So by restricting it to say, okay, did is this allowed? Do we want to make sure that you're just installing the things that you have? And then you mentioned on the back end, I think what's a typical thing there is you'll see, well, there's the IT person, right? They have kind of just full rights to anything all the time. And so they're just going in and doing things, configuring things, managing things, running the little incidents, fixing all sorts of stuff. But then the problem is one is maybe you're not sure all the things that they're doing, and maybe they're not even sure because it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're losing track of what they're clicking on. But then also that account can, if it's compromised, well, now they can move from system to system and really do some damage. So you get some good access control as well as some auditing, it sounds like, as well.
Yes, and all of that goes. We did also implement Sentinel-1 in their systems, and also an email. One of the things that while Microsoft M365 has all these ability, security things that you can implement, you're still you're putting all your eggs in one basket, right? So we moved their MFA to a different MFA that was in Microsoft. And then we also started to do Sentinel-1 scans, make sure that we were able to, if someone installed something, if someone clicked on something, if they're using AI, for their hey, I need to write a presentation, I need to update my resume, they're going to use
Sentinel
AI,
one's
right?
gonna rat them out.
Well, it'll tell us, right?
Yeah.
It'll collect logs. It'll if they're running something, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and in combination with Intune, it'll help to collect all of that information. So
So Microsoft, you mentioned not throwing all your eggs in the Microsoft basket, and they definitely want you to do that if you're using Azure and 365 and Microsoft. It's always been strange to me that Microsoft, I don't know what happened at some point in time. They were able to get into the antivirus endpoint detection game, and then next thing you know, here's Microsoft Defender. It didn't seem fair to me that Microsoft can make their own because they own the operating system. It just didn't seem fair that they could compete in that space. But
well, it makes it convenient for nonprofits and small businesses, right? So if you don't have, it goes back to budget, right? If you don't have the budget to go and find the best of the best, the magic quadrant
it starts as that, but then it's like, and there are other free tools out there, but it's like, oh, if you want the E3 or the E5 or the E whatever system, then you got to, open your wallet, pay for
right,
that.
right,
But what
yeah.
made you guys pick Sentinel-1? Because there's the big players are, of course, Microsoft Defender, there's CrowdStrike. Why did you pick Sentinel-1
Sentinel-1 is
over
the
those
best
others?
in the Magic Quadrant.
You
You
think
get what
so?
you, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you get what you paid for. Purple AI is amazing to help detect any incidents that come up. It's a lifesaver for security analysts to be able to use it when they're trying to analyze incidents. Especially if you're in a big enterprise, you don't want to spend 5 hours trying to find all the machines that have a particular executable that you're trying to block.
Yeah. And I know maybe this is more of a technical detail. Was it just on the merits of you were familiar with Sentinel-1 and you've kind of field tested it against these others and you felt it was just the best that was out there? I know that Sentinel-1 doesn't run in the kernel like CrowdStrike does, and of course last summer we saw what happened with CrowdStrike with an update with CrowdStrike that would never happen with Sentinel-1 because it doesn't, my understanding is at least it doesn't run in the kernel. So even if you were to have a bad kind of update that would come through, it wouldn't crash systems the way that CrowdStrike did. But
Yeah, and Sentinel-1 does give you the option, and by default, it does not automatically update, right? You have to go in and check that ticker to make sure that it's going to automatically update. They do have a boot kit access to be able to scan the boot section of your laptops. And so I have not played with that, so I'm not that familiar with it. I've just kind of read a little bit about it, so.
protect against maybe a rootkit you might get if you go to Black Hat and leave your laptop laying around or something. No, I'm just kidding.
This is why you don't take something that has all your data, right? You
Exactly.
go buy a secondhand,
Take a throwaway
right?
laptop. Yeah, exactly. For these
And a
conferences. Yeah.
prepaid phone.
Right, right. Yeah. Turn off all the things. Turn off Bluetooth and all the things. Yep, yep.
Yeah, and be aware of your smartwatch so that you don't
Oh my gosh,
accidentally.
yeah, there's a smartwatch too. Wow, okay. So you coming in, I'm just curious because I hear this story a lot, right, of organizations just not having the capacity, the resources, the ability to combat these modern threats, not having the internal resources to be able to do that. And we've seen since ransomware over the last, I don't know, I guess since the pandemic, really, it's kind of taken off more and more. On the flip side, we've seen a lot of more MSSPs, managed security service providers, or managed detection and response, right? So organizations that say, okay, Mr. Customer, like, we'll come in and just manage things for you as a service. Do you see that as just almost a necessity now for organizations, that they're not able to keep up with these threats, that they really need to bring in an outside resource, whether it's a consultant or freelancer like yourself or some managed service provider?
Yes and no. So, yes, for small, medium, nonprofit organizations, absolutely, because they don't have the ability to have the skill set and the actual teams to be able to do this, right? So they may have one or two folks on the IT side to help, with the level 1, level 2 items, and then maybe have one or two security folks. If your organization is, huge, say more on the medium size, those folks are going to get overwhelmed. This is where AI is going to become very good to implement to help them with incidents and their threat analysis. So I do believe that the MDRs are beneficial. The MSSPs, it depends. It depends. It goes back to budget because it depends on what level of agreement you have with them, right? Are they there to actually manage your M365 environment? Or are they only there so that they can tell you, oh, you've got, um, 500, you can't do the E365 Business Pro, you've got to go to E5 or E3, and that's your license. And we'll onboard people, and that's all they do. But then who's actually looking at your environment? There's a lot more to do in M365 than onboard people and keep tracks of your licenses, right? You've got to look at the health of your environment. You've got to make sure that people have the right access, added to the right groups, all of those things. And if you don't have your MSSP doing that, then you've got to have someone on site or local to do that, right? Your own employee to do that. And that takes away someone from doing something else, right? So it's a tricky thing with the MSSP that I've seen. You've got to have the right level of service with them. And the MDRs, they're there to help manage, detect, and respond to any incident, provided that they've got the right tools, right, implemented in your environment.
So would those tools be something like Sentinel-1, or would it be more than that? Would it be also managing the actual sort of business continuity, disaster recovery? Would you want them managing the backups? How much how much of that sort of things should organizations be outsourcing?
Well, it all depends too, right? So if you've got local engineers that are doing that, they should be the ones managing those backups, right? As far as your business continuity and your IR, definitely your MDR should be part of that. How much input, it all depends on how big your organization and the maturity level, security maturity level of that organization is, right? So any organization, whether it's a 2-person, 5-person, you should have some sort of business continuity plan, right? So if something happens to somebody, if something happens to your network, if something happens to your cloud infrastructure, what are you going to do? How are you going to build that up, right? And then you've got to have cybersecurity insurance. So how much is it going to take you to get your business back up and running? You should think about getting cyber insurance for that amount, right? Are you okay with being down for a week, 2 weeks, a month, while your data gets back brought up, while your infrastructure gets back brought up? You've got to think about all of that. So as a C-level person, as a board member of an organization, you should start thinking about all of these things if you haven't, and try to come up with a plan for that business continuity and bring in your incident response and detect folks. So
Do organizations have to basically learn the hard way before they start to do some of these things? Whether, I mean, in this case, it was more extreme, right? They got hit pretty hard and, you know, fortunately they were able to survive. Some of them don't. Or do they, maybe there's someone else in their industry or they hear in the news or something like that? Is there, do you see like a greater awareness in, you know, boardrooms amongst executives, or does something bad have to happen before people start to spend the money to fix the problems?
I think a lot of CISOs, a lot of CEOs talk amongst their peers, other CISOs and CEOs within their industry. And I think that that's how they come in and, oh, let's have a bright, new, shiny idea. I need this tool because my friend down the street is using it and I need it, right? So then they've got to determine whether or not it's going to even be worth paying whatever it's going to pay to use that particular tool. So I think to answer your question, it depends on the industry, it depends on the size of the organization, whether or not the C-level folks, the board members, are actually really involved with those up-to-date stuff. You read about ransomware, account takeovers, all these breaches of data being stolen. And if your CEO and your CISO and your board members are keeping up to date, yeah, they're going to ask the right questions of your technology folks, of your IT managers, of your cybersecurity managers. They're going to ask them, are we protected? And if not, what do we need to do to be protected, right? Cybersecurity training and awareness should be not just 1 month out of the year in October, it should be an ongoing program for organizations. That is going to be key to help people identify what's being coming in as far as emails, right? I like Proofpoint as an email kind of, it sanitizes emails. It goes through and looks to see if you've got a phishing link in your email. It blocks it, it sandboxes it. They also have really good AI that you can use. So training your end users to be able to identify something as either a fish, a smish, a vish, and all of those, right? So your phishing comes in email, your vish is your voicemail or a voice, right? Your smish is a text, and so
I was
all of
thinking
those.
video when you said Vish. I didn't think voicemail, but I guess, yeah.
Yeah, it's a voice. It's voice. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess somebody could send you a video now with AI, right?
Yeah, deep fakes. Yeah.
This is really not me. No.
Yeah, I wonder, I guess what I see a lot is that organizations that are maybe behind and are trying to catch up, they typically look for a quick fix, or they'll think just moving to 365 is like, okay, we didn't want to buy new servers and new switches and all this sort of stuff, so we moved to 365, we moved to Azure, and the problem solved now. Or we bought Sentinel-1 and the problem solved now. Or whatever it is, they go to a conference, they walk through the trade floor, and they're sold something. And not that it's any of these tools are, there's nothing wrong with them, but I think what you were describing earlier is more of this comprehensive approach, right? It's like, okay, there's some foundational things. You got to pick the right tools and maybe even at the right time for certain things. It's like maybe Sentinel-1 is something that you install first and you kind of, we'll do the training. That's definitely part of it. But if everything is wide open, I don't know if training is necessarily the first thing that you want to do. So
And
I
you
don't
want
know,
to,
but I just see a lot of people just thinking, oh, there's just like, if I just buy back to Black Hat. This is one of the things that he would talk about. Mr. Black Hat was Mr. Dark Tangent was like, just people think security is a shiny blinky thing. Yeah, so you just buy the box that's shiny blinky, and then you plug it in, and then if the lights are flashing, then you know that security is happening, and you're fine. So
Um, there are a lot of people that have that mindset. Yes, okay, I moved up to the cloud, M365, I've got Defender, it's working. And if that was the case, we wouldn't have all of these breaches, all of these ransomware happenings, all of these account takeovers happening, right? So, yes, you want to buy what is going to fit your industry, your organization, small, medium, large, nonprofit, and have like your foundational tools, but then start to each year add on to more, right? Or each quarter, like figure out what is your low hanging fruit of the vulnerabilities that you have, which is how you can use MITRE ATT&CK to help you determine fix those, and then that's your life cycle, right? So you're constantly fixing the vulnerabilities that you potentially have identified to kind of stop the attackers. Attackers are always constantly learning, right? So if they
they
try
are,
something,
aren't they? Yes.
if they try something and it
They're
doesn't
bought into
work,
the training. Yeah.
yes, they are constantly evolving and trying to
Yeah.
hack their way in. If you've been hacked before, you can guarantee they're going to try to hack you once more with a different technique, with a different tactic.
So, what's some training that you've done in the last year or so that you recommend that you feel was really good?
I did the MITRE attack training and I loved it. It was great. I have also done quite a bit of Sentinel-1 capture the flag, which helps you to get kind of more hands-on of the product. I've done several proof point leadership trainings to get to know their product, and I just did their Defender capture the flag couple of weeks ago. That was great to get to see them. I'm working on a SANS leadership training that I did to try to get that certification. Microsoft has a lot of free training as well. Look at their events page. They have in multiple languages and time zones as well. So that helps to get you trained up on their items. And sometimes they'll have where if you do their free training and you sign up for their certification, you either get it free or get a discount code. So I've done all of that.
You mentioned Microsoft Intune earlier. Is that for, you mentioned for asset sort of tracking, and is it also like for hardening and configuration management? Like, um, what kinds of things can Intune do? Do you recommend Intune? Is that like is there other tools that could do it better? Can Sentinel-1 do that kind of thing, or you really need to have Intune?
You need to have a configuration management tool. So whether you use Intune or something else, that's within the Magic Quadrant is where I would lean towards. Then yeah, so Intune helps you to do configuration compliance and application policies for your devices. And that could be a laptop, Windows, Linux, iOS, and Android devices as well. And it also helps you to create a standard corporate image that you can deploy easily when you're deploying new machines or re-imaging new machines. And if you're a big enough organization, you could also have your device vendor you bring down that image, your corporate image, and ship out those laptops already imaged. So there's a lot you can do with Intune. I like it, but I also hate it.
Yeah. Those things
Um,
tend to be super complicated.
it
Yeah.
is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to, deploying and hardening iOS devices, whether or not you have a corporate or you go with Apple configurator, you've got to know both, right? So yeah, it's a huge tool that I've used and I have a love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it for the iOS devices, but yeah, I was just thinking about it more of just like a group policy,
You can do
configuration
group policy. Yep.
management. Are there things in there because, like, for hardening standards, there's one, we used to look at, NIST, and they have different hardening frameworks that you can look at. And then there's one called CIS. So it's a CIS benchmarks. Are there things I haven't used Intune for that, but is there a benchmark that you follow that you use with that as well?
Yeah, SIS does have a benchmark for M365, Azure, and Intune. So if I am hired to implement Intune for a client, then yes, I would use that as a benchmark to make sure that it's at least set up with a particular framework in mind, NIST, and then the benchmark.
So what does that give you? So just for if I'm new to this, what does this configuration management and this hardening do? And would it have stopped potentially this cyber attack, the phishing, even if I'd clicked on it or whatever? Maybe if things were hardened a certain way, maybe it wouldn't have gotten as bad and traveled to other systems.
I think if their M365 tenant had been configured correctly with the get-go of we've got Defender defending, we've got some of the compliance in risk management set up within the tenant, maybe within the email scanning potentially it probably could have caught it because this ransomware that they got was one of the highest ransomwares, one of the ones that was actually going around at the time with everybody. So yeah, I think if their tenant had been configured correctly, it could have caught it. It could have at least alerted the local IT folks that there was a lot of phishing happening and then potentially from there doing their investigation. At the time, they didn't have Sentinel-1. All they had was M365, but they did not have Defender deployed everywhere. So
Yeah, you really need to have
something.
everything. Yeah, they'll find the crack. Whatever little thing that you didn't, you know, harden or secure, the bad guys somehow it's just like the flies attracted to whatever
Yeah,
you leave out,
that
they'll
I mean,
find it.
if once they're in, they will try to go in and find a account that they can move laterally, and then try to exploit, other areas. And a lot of the things that a lot of people don't think about is your IoT devices. Your IoT devices are out there too, and you've got
Right.
to
So
harden
those are
that.
like cameras or other
Printers.
printers. Oh yes, yes. I remember this is one of the first black hats I went to back in the day. This guy from Germany was giving this talk about how he would hack printers, and printers would have little web servers on it, and then he would he would take over the printer and then use that as a foothold to this is 20 years ago. He was attacking the network, and then he would install all sorts of crazy things on there. But basically, yeah, he would get a foothold on there. Then he would like nmap scan the network from the printer, stuff like that, right? So
Yeah, you don't think about that. There are a lot of times where you think about, oh, I just need to harden my laptops and my mobile devices and my backend infrastructure, and you forget your IoT devices that are out there that could be opened. So, yeah.
so you mentioned AI earlier. So is AI something that you're using to help you tackle some of these challenges? Um, and if so, how are you using it?
So AI, well, I feel that AI has been out there for years and years. We all remember Clippy, right?
Clippy is not AI. Come on.
Well, AI, all it really is a LLM. That's
Yeah,
all it
it's
really is.
autocomplete.
Yeah,
Yeah, Clippy
yeah,
was just autocomplete. It's like,
yeah.
you did this already. I can do it again.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So I love AI for security incidents, for helping to automate some of the threat hunting. But I also feel that a human needs to be involved as well, right? So you're the one that's configuring that automation that AI is using, but you also want to validate, right? So um, I feel that companies are not ready to implement within that company to allow their users to use AI unless they have actually classified and segmented their data. There are companies out there that do not have policies where, oh, they're using ChatGPT. But ChatGPT is open. You don't want your intellectual property being put out there on ChatGPT. You don't want your developer to going out there and saying, hey, ChatGPT, help me write this particular code for this particular item.
Yeah, something I just learned about ChatGPT is that, even if you delete things or you say, don't use my whatever happens in this chat to train your models, because of the lawsuit that they're having. So the New York Times has sued OpenAI for allegedly using their content to train their models, right? Which they totally did, but it's just, it's still in court and they're still figuring it out. Allegedly did. Um, but because of this court case, the judge ruled that OpenAI has to retain all chats, like even stuff you delete. So it doesn't matter what you think is happening, you think you're deleting it, they're retaining it's retained somewhere.
The only thing is if you are an organization that is needs to follow some sort of HIPAA compliance or something else, then they can't use it for training their, or they're not supposed to use it for training their.
Yeah, I don't know that this particular court order, I know that in the case of OpenAI, like if you sign some kind of enterprise agreement, which nobody will do if you're just like paying them $20 a month or whatever, there are situations where it won't. But I think it just it leads to this bigger question around data security where, if the data sort of gets into the LLM at any point, whatever that data is, and you mentioned classification earlier, and sure, there could be some things that you are totally fine for it to be in there and it doesn't matter. It's maybe public facing stuff, marketing related stuff or whatever, but kind of if it gets in the LLM at any point, then can you ever get it out? It's kind of like it's out in the world now. It's like it's almost like it's on the dark web or whatever. It's just like it's forever.
Unless you have your own LLM database that you're allowing your employees to have access to that, yeah, you otherwise you don't, right? So compliance regulation for organizations is how are they going to use AI? How are your employees going to use AI? What AI are you going to allow them to use, right? If you can tighten that then you have a lesser chance of having your intellectual property out there, your development code out there, so that you can try to contain it. If you build your own LLM, hey, you've got all the power to be able to control what gets put out there, right? If you don't classify your data in, let's say, M365, since we've been talking about it a lot, and you decide to use Copilot, anybody could ask Copilot, hey, can you give me a list of all the salaries that are being paid for all the C-level folks? And it could potentially give you that if you haven't classified it, right? so, so you want to be careful. There's a lot of companies need to think about it. And, you know, it sounds sexy to say, hey, we have AI and we've just implemented AI. We're one of the very few in our industry that have implemented AI, but then if you've not implemented it correctly, you could be asking for trouble.
Yeah, and I feel like it's going to be more of the you're asking for trouble because I just see all of these cool new features. So there's like MCP, and now you can connect your AI to things, to data sources. You can connect it to whatever. Imagine all the different SaaS things that you have out there. Now you can even, let's just say Google Drive, is the thing. They have a connector now. Just connect it to your Google Drive, like you said, if you haven't classified that data, or if it's in kind of this shadow IT realm, it's like, well, when it was in 365, it's all classified in there. But I did an export because I was working on a project and I need the reports. And so I have some of the data in CSV files. So I can
Hey,
just secretly
ChatGPT.
connect it, and it can make some cool diagrams and reports and stuff for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, shadow AI is a thing out there that companies need to look for. And threat actors are using it. They're using it to try to come in as one of their techniques and tactics.
You just got to use the acronym instead. So yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
T AITTP.
Yeah.
It's easier to say. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Can be a black hat drinking game every time.
Oh yeah, you can drive home or walk to your hotel if you can say this.
Yeah. Who are all these weird people wandering around muttering about TTPs and stuff? So yeah. Oh, it's just a black hat conference again. So yeah, yeah. So we're talking about training and now talking about AIs and stuff. Like, what are some things? Are there training? Like, everything with AI just seems like it's moving so quickly. How do we, um, even if we're trying to stay on top of it, what kinds of things can we do? So you mentioned classification, but what other things can organizations need to pay particular attention to try to stay on top of this?
So NIST has a framework, an AI framework that people can use. I don't know if they have it still in draft or not, or if they've published it. EU does have an AI framework that they have published. So I would look at those regulations and see if anything can be implemented within the organization, if it's something that's going to be within that industry. That would be the way to go. And then there are some trainings out there. Train your employees on how to use AI responsibly, right? So how to prompt it and how to get the best out of it if you are implementing it, so that they can actually have a good experience with it. Your cybersecurity teams, whatever tool you're using, whether I know Cisco, Sentinel-1, I think Palo Alto, and maybe CrowdStrike already all have AI engines out there that can help cybersecurity teams to identify some of the threats and items that are going through that.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical of the vendor AI stuff. Um, we have Palo Alto and we have CrowdStrike, and I'm not saying it's not AI, but it's not. I think a lot of vendors now are just throwing AI, just slap AI label on it, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's really providing as much value, or if it's just you know, clippy with some AI lipstick on them. I don't know. Yeah.
The ones that I've used, so I've used Purple AI with Sentinel-1, and I've seen it in action, and I've actually used it myself, where I've done it and queried some of the incidents. It does it does work, and yeah, it is it's database, right? So you're just at a prompt asking it to give you whatever incidents within the last X period that contain X, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's not that you can't see the value in that, but we've kind of already had that. So I'm trying to figure out where AI can really be helpful. Because
The
like there's
automation
machine
part,
learning,
right?
exactly the automation part. Because a lot of the sort of machine learning stuff at the end of the day is just like, you know what? A statistical analysis of the same data would have given us 90% of the same results. So the AI or machine learning wasn't particularly that helpful. But I think on the automation piece, so we were looking for a time at a different kind of SOAR or whatever, next generation SOAR products. So there was one called Tines. There was another one called Torque, that are these automation orchestration frameworks for doing security. And then we settled on one that's an open source one called Windmill. That's not security specific, but I felt you could do the same things with. So we've been playing around with that. But speaking of automation, what are the kinds of things that you guys are looking at for AI and automation, and or just automation in general? It doesn't have to be AI.
So probably more of automating to seeing how to analyze some of the incidents that get caught, right? So analyzing them to determine whether or not they are real threats or threats that have been mitigated before that the engine is just catching it, and so they're fake.
Is this a new thing that you need to be worried about, or is it, you know, the same old thing and we know it's okay because we're already protected against that?
Yeah, so those types of automation, and I know Cisco's doing some automations on their end when of their products that they've got. I know Palo Alto has some automations built in for some of the products that they have. So I think if we embrace those automations that are being sold to us by these vendors, it'll help to eliminate some of the time that engineers are taking in identifying some of the threats that are out there.
That's the hope and the dream, right? Because I think so much of there's so much noise, right? And so you just think of SOC analysts, or even these organizations that do MDR, like how much of it is noise, and they're like, we have a SOC and it's staffed 24/7, and it sounds like it's a really cool job for a while, but then after a while it's just like you're seeing just so many false positives, so much noise, and you would want, I think, to have an AI to help sort that out and to help kind of be that tier one analyst and figure some of that stuff out.
Yeah, that most definitely, and that's where the automation part comes in, right? So you automate the AI to look at everything that comes in and determine whether or not, hey, it needs to get forwarded to a human, level 2, level 3, right? And or is it something that the enterprise is already protected against? Then we resolve these, right? So I think embracing that. I think a lot of SOC analysts need to start thinking more along the lines of threat analyst, right? Because if you're going to use AI to be your tier one SOC analyst and then dump it to a human, then now you're being the person that's really investigating those threats, right? Being the curious. What's actually causing the spike of these phishing emails, right? So
Yeah, I think once I started to think of AI less as like this super intelligent Jarvis type entity that would just figure everything out, and think of it more like maybe not quite an intern, but we'll just say fresh out of school, cybersecurity novice that can just, look at these simple alerts, right? Sort of the SOC tier one type stuff. And yeah, they're not going to get it right all the time, but neither is a human, right? The interns aren't going to get it right all the time. Heck, I'm not going to get it right all the time. Nobody can get it right all the time. But at least you can at least come up with the criteria to say, okay, they get it right, whatever, tune it so it gets it 80% of the time or whatever. So yeah.
right, and that's the thing with teaching the AI models, right? So you can teach it, and if it's not catching everything, what is it within that automation do you need to tweak? You don't want it to become like, you know, David in Space Odyssey or
Oh, we know it's coming. It's going to come at some point. Yeah.
or, or be the Matrix.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. You read that's a crazy thing. It's like no one knows what's coming. It's either going to be, there's this AI 2027 paper that came out. I don't know if you've read that or not or heard about that, but it's like, yep, in 2 years it's basically Skynet and we're all going to die, or no, we've kind of hit the peak and it's just clippy and it's basically autocomplete is what the LLMs are, and we're still going to very much need the humans to you know to run interference on everything. So yeah.
I worked for a company a while back where we were automating using an actual AI that so went down the whole Skynet thing. We had some contracts with some of the government folks, and I was just like, oh man, one of these days I'm walking into work and it's going to be Skynet.
I guess you can try to put guardrails on it, but yeah, I don't know. At some point, I mean, this is the thing about LLMs in general, right? Is they're going to hallucinate, so they're going to get things wrong. So I think as long as you have that expectation out of it, I hope that we just keep that expectation. Like there's going to be, someone needs to look at it critically. You can't just let it make
Go
decisions
crazy.
on its
Yeah.
own. Can't let
Well,
it make decisions on its own. There's got to be a human in the loop somewhere.
Gemini seems to be the best out of them. You know, there's Claude and there's all these other ones. It seems to be the best, but it's still, after a while, will start to hallucinate or interact in a way where it's lost its brain.
Or even as they talk about in the AI 2027 paper, it's like it will hallucinate, but then it will basically lie to you, and it will have its own agenda, but it'll tell you what you want to hear, sort of thing. So that's the thing, is how do you know what its true intentions are? So being able to have markers, or I don't know what it is, to look at certain things within the model itself that are firing to say, okay. But after a certain point, like if the model is making new models, then we don't even know how it works to start with now. So how are we going to know, like, as if AI makes the new AI, how are we going to know what's happening inside of that?
Tell it to shut itself down, and it tells you no.
I don't even know where we go with this with cybersecurity, but I think what my hope is that through the automations, to me, are like the guardrails. I feel like, because I look at a system like Windmill, where it's deterministic, right? And so we're used to that in the computer world. It's like you can only do these three things, and that's it. You can't do anything else. You can't just make up something and you know, go build your own rocket ship and start doing stuff. It's just you can only do these things, and the automation, you can maybe call them in your own unique ways, but basically you can be creative. The LLM can decide how it wants to call these in the most efficient way, but at the end of the day, we're just doing these deterministic things, and that's what the automations are. We're not letting it have more power than that.
Yeah, and you're right. I think within cybersecurity, the way that it's going to help is automating and helping that run in an automated way where you still have the human factor coming in and checking to validate.
And then on the flip side, we have the bad guys who are also using AIs and coming up with unique TTPs. What do you think is the biggest risk there, or is that something you've spent any time thinking about, like what things that the bad guys might do to circumvent all of the cool stuff that you've just implemented and talked about?
I think if you've left yourself a hole somewhere, whether it's a open API or something where you did not close and you left it out there open, then that's where your threat actors are going to come in, right? I've not really looked into it. I've thought about it. I've not really researched it. You as a cybersecurity analyst, a cybersecurity engineer, you got to think about how would a threat actor use this in a bad way? And then try to figure out how you can protect yourself against any open areas, vulnerabilities that you left yourself out there with. So as you implement AI, yeah, you got to think about it. If I was a bad actor, how could I get in here? How could I penetrate into this environment with this particular AI that I've just implemented?
Yeah, and when we talk about the threat actors, the bad guys, I think it's important to mention that there's, of course, different tiers, different categories, different types. So there's maybe the criminal types. So it might be, the ransomware gangs, whether they're developing their own tooling or they're just using ransomware as a service. So they're not really that sophisticated. They just signed up for, you know,
I have
to
a
be part of
broker.
the club. Yep, and they or they're a broker or something like that. Or you're talking about nation state and the resources that the Chinese government, for example, would be able to bring to bear on something like that. Yeah, there's a podcast that just came out recently, co-sponsored by Rubric by Nicole Perlroth, and she used to be journalist for the New York Times, and she since left and is doing her own independent stuff. But she wrote a book called "They Tell Me This Is How the World Ends," and it's about cybersecurity, right? And anyway, she did this podcast, and it was called "To Catch a Thief," and I recommend you check it out. It's very fascinating. But she talks about specifically about the Chinese government and just how much we've kind of underplayed the threat of the Chinese government, particularly talking about just intellectual property theft. And she gives lots of examples of how that's happened over the last 10 years. And basically, we just didn't have the capacity on many different levels to stop that from happening. And, whether it's Huawei becoming who they are today, kind of how that started, where they ripped off Nortel, which was a Canadian sort of Cisco at the time, and Nortel went out of business because of it. But just all the intellectual property that's been stolen because of that. But how they went about doing that is they basically became embedded inside of your systems, right? And so in such a way that was really hard to detect.
Yeah, kind of like what SolarWinds happened.
Right.
Uh,
Supply chain attack. I think that
mhm.
was the Russians instead of the Chinese in that particular case, but nevertheless, that kind of attack that you just mentioned, a supply chain attack where they're getting in and staying there and having these novel ways to get in. Maybe they're not coming in through for their phishing link, but there's so many other ways that they can get in and stay in. And if they're in now, assuming that they're in some nefarious way, then yeah, how do we detect that, and how do we I don't know, I'm just trying to think about what the implications of that are. Yeah.
Well, so one of the things is utilizing the tools that you have in play to help you analyze your environment, right? So, are you seeing a bunch of data that's just kind of moving? You back up your data at 3 a.m. every morning, right? But then and it only takes 30 minutes, right? But then at 3:45, it starts up again. You see that data height, or maybe the
Some
spike,
behavioral, like network behavioral things. So maybe
maybe
that's
there's a
something
spike within the
AI could
spike.
help analyze that to
Yes,
say, okay, these are unusual traffic patterns that happen.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
Stella doesn't
Um,
usually log in at 3:45 in the morning to do a backup of the system.
Yeah, exactly. Or a spike within a spike. If the threat actor's already been inside your organization and they've already done their own analysis of how your traffic is, how your environment works, then when they try to exfiltrate, they could be potentially using one of those data spikes. And so you've got to be able
Sure.
to analyze
Yeah.
that,
Just to
right? So,
piggyback on that to try to
hmm
hide their.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, I see this myself with just phishing stuff that I get. And I'm, surprised sometimes the things that get through. But I guess On the flip side, I know that the people doing this have access to tools that they can test. Okay, I have, you know, here's a phishing thing that I want to do that I think is clever and is going to get through. I can test it. I can have 100 variants, 1,000 variants, 10,000 variants, and then see which ones make it through. And then those are the ones I'll send, right? So they have an easy way to test these things to see what can make it through.
And they're probably using AI to test that, right? To see which one is
They should be. If they're not, then they probably, we just gave them the idea now.
the
Way to
idea.
go. It's just like, you blew it. You're supposed to
The
make
other
us
thing,
more secure and you just blew it. Way to go. Yeah.
the other thing too is, one of the things that going back to my client that brought me into incident response is updates, right? Updating and patching and web application certificates of application, making sure those don't expire, and then there's a way for folks, because that's exactly what happened to SolarWinds, right? So they had their web app, they had a expired certification or certificate. That's how the threat actor went in. So
They blamed an intern for that. I was very upset with SolarWinds after that. We had some SolarWinds products, and we promptly got rid of SolarWinds after that happened. But it wasn't because of the incident. The incident was bad, but as the CEO, I felt like the CEO should have came out and said, "You know what? This is on me. I'm the CEO. I should have made sure that we have the proper framework, training, tooling, blah, 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 whatever. So if some intern screwed up and forgot to change the password on the thing somewhere, that's my fault as a CEO because I created a system where that could happen." That's what I feel like should have happened, but I don't think that did happen. My recollection is that they just threw the low level people under the bus and just saying, "Wow, it's just those guys didn't do the thing right." And so that's why we got hacked by the Russians. It's like, well, if that's the kind of thing that can happen, then you're in bigger trouble than we all thought. So
yeah, and I think it in an organization like that I think it was just too big. It was something was going to happen sooner or later, right? Like that person that was in there, that actually that gang, that threat actor that was there for a long time waiting for something to happen, right?
well, they were testing, right? They're just like, okay, we're in. We're not going to do anything, but we know we're in because we can just send, I don't know, some simple updates through that aren't making you know noticeable changes. To just put a comment in that says this is a comment and it's in Russian, but no one's seeing what that's what it is. It's fine. Yeah.
And so, speaking of supply chain, I think a lot of companies also need to look at that, right? So that's a third-party risk analysis for making sure that you don't have yourself an open area for threat actors to come in, right? So third parties, going back to your MSSPs and your MDRs, you need to make sure that you assess them to make sure that they are up to date, right? They're not using utilities and things that they're introducing into your environment that could make your environment vulnerable to threat actors.
Right. Who's watching the watchers?
Almost sounds like the Night Watchers. Yes.
Yeah. There's always some movie or superhero trope that we can invoke here that's, we all know what's happening because there's already been a movie about it. We're just letting it's all unfolding now, and we're just like sitting in disbelief. Like, I didn't think it would happen in my lifetime, but yet here we are. So I enjoy going to the conferences. So you mentioned Black Hat. I might go to Black Hat this year. I haven't been in a while. But I enjoy going to conferences just to hear about this kind of stuff. And I actually went to the CrowdStrike conference last year, and partly because we were CrowdStrike customers, and I was pretty salty after that happened. It didn't it didn't affect us nearly as bad because our guys were on top of it and were able to figure it out and recover us. But so I wanted to be there to just sort of, I thought it was going to be like this big news story and everyone's going to be up in arms about it. But, they owned it. And the dust had kind of blown over by then, which it hadn't been that long, but it ended up being a really good conference, and I learned so many other things despite that. And then they had a concert with this had nothing to do with my CrowdStrike, being a CrowdStrike fanboy now, but they brought in Tiesto to do like a DJ show. So that say so basically, if they just feed you and give you a big rave, all is forgiven at that point.
Right,
So yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. Unless you were sitting at the airport going, "What the
Oh my
hell?"
God, yes, yes. But I hadn't been stranded at the airport. Yes, that would have been. I would have needed two. Tiesto would have had to give me a personal, rave
Concert.
concert instead. Yeah. So, but no, it's great to go to these conferences. I think what I enjoy is networking with people and meeting people and having conversations like this and learning from other people that are tackling some of these things and the tools that they're using, what they like, what they don't like, and
Yeah, I went to a RSA this year and actually really sat down and listened to a lot of conversations and talks. And I was more interested to see, AI was the talk that was everywhere, right? Almost every vendor had something about AI, and I wanted to see what they were saying, just to, see what's coming down the pipe, seeing what tools are going to be changing or how people are going to be using it, because I know companies are not ready. So I liked it. It was really good. And so I'm looking forward to Black Hat. While I don't attend any of the briefings or anything like that because I'm busy in the back end dispatching people and making sure that the small incidents don't occur, and the attendees have a good time. I do get to talk to some of them. So.
yeah. Black Hat is kind of the in between, right? You have the RSA one is more of the corporate conference, and yeah, Black Hat is still it's still kind of corporate, but it's kind of that in between conference. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the VP levels, maybe directors go to RSA, and then you've got your engineers and managers that go to Black Hat, and then you've got your DEF CON follows right up after that. So
Okay, Stella, I've got a question for you. I'm going to take all your tools away and only give you one. So if you just woke up one morning and your tools all disappeared, and you're like, wow, I don't know what happened. The AI just removed all my tools, but you only have one now that you can install and run with. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but what's the one tool that you absolutely would have to have? You only get one. Pick one tool.
I am going to go. I'm going to surprise you. So we've not talked
Flippy.
about them. No. Proof point. They're
Really?
proof
That
point. Yes.
surprises me.
Yes.
Yeah.
His proof point, while Sentinel 1 is good, proof point, think of it as it does a lot more than Defender. It does a lot more than PureView put together. So, yeah. And it can feed its logs up to Sentinel 1. So, proof point would be the one that I would,
But you
because
don't have Sentinel 1.
I know,
It took it
but I would
away.
be right there. But I would be right there
Yeah. The logs
using
are
proof.
going,
Yeah.
if when Sentinel
Yeah.
1, wherever it comes back. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, 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 but I could still be there, and my email would be guarded. My data would be guarded. I could see everything.
So it guards your data too. Because when I, my knowledge of Proofpoint is I just thought of it as an email gateway. So that's why I was a
No,
little surprised to hear that. So what else does it do?
so Proofpoint has email security, user protection, immersion protection. They do DLP, and insider threat management, which is one of the things that I would use it for, really. So, yeah, it's their products are they're all trying to bring in into one consolidated view of all of these products. So,
The single pane of glass.
yes,
I keep hearing about that.
yes. They also do security awareness, which is very good. So the way that they do theirs, I like theirs better than the Know Before, because I've used it, and you can change it so that it's by role. So your marketing doesn't get the same training as your HR, as your finance.
To make sure the person controlling the bank account has things to make sure their account doesn't get taken over.
You're not going to send them a fish that says, please deposit this number of Bitcoins into this account.
Not even the Bitcoin. I think it's scary, maybe not as much in business, although I'm sure it happens, but like the scam compounds and, grandma getting her, it's terrible.
Life insurance taken away, all of that.
Not just life insurance. It's just, they take thousands of dollars out of their bank accounts. They're losing money. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I like is being involved in some of the communities that I'm involved in. Cyber Jitsu, the Women's Cyber Jitsu is a group that I belong to. And then I also talk to quite a bit of people on LinkedIn about how to help, your family. People that aren't in IT or cyber, they don't know how to defend themselves, right? We've been talking about companies and small, medium, and nonprofit, but like the individual person out there, your next door neighbor, they're all open if they don't know how to protect themselves.
Yeah, and I saw, I just talked about it with my wife actually this weekend, and I saw you had posted on LinkedIn about this recent info stealer, stuff that had come to light of all these accounts where information had been captured for your Microsoft accounts and Amazon accounts and Apple accounts and this account and that account and the other account. And yeah, I think there's going to be more of that kind of thing. But just the fact that you see that and it's like, okay, everyone, you need to go change your password now. That's like, are people going to do that? I think that'll happen. The garage will get cleaned before that happens. So that's a tough sell just to have, my dad go change his password. Yeah.
So. Rotate the Post-its that are posted to the top of your computer there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Stela, it's been a pleasure having you. I really appreciate you taking the time and talking with me about cybersecurity and incident response and all this great stuff. It's been wonderful.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed our conversation. So anytime, happy to come on, talk about anything.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And now I need to think about maybe going to Black Hat this year. I've been
yes.
for a while, so yeah.
I'll be down, let's see, it's Mandalay Bay F, I think is where I'll be stationed at.
It's always in summer in Vegas, though, and that's the part where I know you're indoors the whole time, but just part of my brain being here in Seattle is just like, I just think it's going to be 110 degrees, and do I want to go to Vegas in the summer? Not really, but
yeah, you're inside.
You're indoors. It's fine.
Yeah. If you get a room there at the Mandalay Bay,
you never need to leave.
No, you don't leave.
Just
food is there. Like yeah. Unless
Who's
you go to
the
any
entertainment though. Do you have the inside scoop on that?
No, I do not. I don't really go to any of the parties unless I get emails.
Unless there's trouble and there's something not working. It's a little incident.
I don't think this year I've gotten anything where I've been invited to anything as of yet.
You need to talk to someone about that.
Yeah.
If only you knew someone that was the architect of this thing. You need to get a VIP boost. You've been doing this long enough that
right.
Yeah, you need to look into that. So.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
All right.
So if you do go, hopefully you'll stop by and say hi.
Absolutely, I will.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, Stela.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to Data and Confused. I really appreciate you listening. Please go ahead and subscribe as I get this podcast off the ground. I have a lot of amazing guests planned, industry experts and thought leaders from the tech and cybersecurity world. So look forward to seeing you in future episodes. Thank you.